Hey now, Homeless Chef here, showing you how I do my pizza dough. Quick and easy way. In this big stainless steel bowl here, I have 3 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour and a tablespoon of salt. Then I pre-proofed my active dry yeast with a tablespoon of honey in the water at 110 degrees. I stirred in my active dry yeast, let it proof for 10 minutes. And when it looks nice and creamy like that, you know it's been activated. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add that liquid ingredient, the yeast, water and honey, into the salt and flour. And then we're gonna go ahead and take a clean hand and we're gonna just combine those dry and liquid ingredients until we get a nice consistent dough. We're building the gluten is what we're doing right now. And that gives your dough that stretchability and that elasticity to make it stretch to a nice real thin crust. So you want to knead this for about anywhere from say 5 to 10 minutes. So it's all pretty much combined evenly and into one nice ball of dough. And we're going to add about a tablespoon of olive oil. So once you've got this all into a nice even consistency, an even dough consistency, what you're going to want to do is you're going to cover the bowl with saran wrap or some kind of plastic cling wrap to keep the air from it. Put it into a warm, dry location and let it rise for about an hour and a half. Then once it's risen to doubled in size of what you're going to see here when I'm finished. Once it's risen, you'll know because it'll actually double in size from the yeast and the air combining. And then at that point, what you want to do is you want to shape it into sort of a football shape, cut it into 2 pieces, equal pieces, put them in separate bowls with olive oil, lined, just greased with olive oil, because you're going to have enough out of this recipe for 2 good sized large pizza pies. So like I say, after about an hour it should be risen enough to where you can cut it in 2 and put it in the separate bowls. And then what you want to do is you want to cold ferment it in the refrigerator overnight, up to 72 hours. You can get away 24 hours, it's going to be fine. It's going to come out nice and crispy and a good restaurant pizza place style crust. That good girl. She just got herself a mouse underneath my feet. Unfortunately, I don't think you saw that action, but that's why I flinched. 2 for flinching. In any case, back to get it, girl. Back to my double dough. 2 large pies you're gonna make out of this after you separate it. And like I said, the cold fermentation process is a minimum 24 hours. Maximum, you could leave it in the fridge for 3 days, 4 days, or you could, after 24 hours, freeze the dough and thaw it out and use it that way. There's a lot of options, but now you can see this is all combined into a nice dough ball here. And there's a little stuck to my fingers, but that's like about a 75% hydration dough right there. And that's just 75% liquid. I believe that's how it works. This might be more like about a 65% hydration. I like to make my dough a little bit more dry because dehydration comes out in the fermentation process. It comes a little bit sticky sometimes. Depends on where you're at, the humidity level and the temperature. I guess if you're back east in the cold weather, you want it to be 75% hydration because it's just not going to evaporate off in that cold temperature, depending on what time of year, I guess I will say. Alright, so this has come out to about where I want it. I've kneaded it for about 5 minutes or so. I think it's ready to rise. So if you want to take a look, this is what it looks like after about 5 or 6 minutes of kneading all the ingredients together. And if you have an electric mixer, you can use the dough hook and mix it that way. But being the homeless chef, I have a generator that's not working, and I prefer to do it by hand anyway. Old school craftsmanship. I've got power tools, and I prefer to still use an old-fashioned screwdriver when I'm doing something, just because it makes you feel like you accomplished something more as a legit craftsman, an artisan, instead of just being following directions. All right then, I'm calling this ready to rise. I'm just going to finish this by shaping it into a nice ball and sealing in that CO2 that's being produced by the yeast. And then, like I said, I'm going to wrap this with saran wrap, but first I'm going to give it a little more olive oil, just so it doesn't stick to the bowl while it's rising. Alright, so that's our initial dough ball. Again, I say in about an hour, when this is doubled in size, I'll cut this into two and separate the two. Begin the cold fermentation process, which I usually only do for 24 hours, being that I don't have a fridge. I have a cooler with ice in it, so 24 hours is good enough. Let me grab a paper towel. So basically, there you have it. That's going to be 2 pies right there, or dough. And you'll know by its size when it's doubled, it's ready for the cold fermentation. This is my least favorite part of the process, is working with this clay ramp. They make it so easy looking in the commercials when they just stretch out one layer and stretch it to the sides so perfectly. It's like a drum. That never seems to work for me. Even when I cough up the extra dime to get the name brand instead of just the Walmart generic. And you don't have to use as big of a bowl as I have here. I was given this bowl by a good friend, and I really like it because it's almost like if I was to have taken it out and put it on my flat surface, working within the bowl. But when it comes to wrapping it with the wrap here, you need to use a little bit more than if it were just a small bowl like I'm going to put it into after it rises. So anyway, there you have it. That's the Homeless Chef pizza dough recipe. And come back when I throw this in the oven tomorrow night.